Commander Virlana stood in the center of the Galactic War Council chamber, her imposing figure illuminated by the bluish glow of tactical holograms. The room, filled with representatives of the Empire's elite species, hummed with an air of arrogance and dismissal. She could feel the weight of their skepticism pressing against her as she addressed the council. "My lords," Virlana began, her tone even but insistent, "the skirmish on Yoris 4 was no ordinary engagement. The human forces we encountered defied every expectation, and the Empire would be wise to reconsider its stance on them." Her words hung in the air, met with a chorus of scoffs and murmurs. An elder counselor, his scaled visage reflecting disdain, leaned forward. "You exaggerate, Commander. They are primitive. Their technology is an amalgamation of stolen scraps and rudimentary engineering. Their fleets are disorganized, their strategy laughable. What could they possibly offer against the might of the Empire?" Virlana's claws twitched, but she kept her voice steady. "It is not their technology that concerns me, it is their adaptability. When our forces descended upon Yoris 4, they were outnumbered and outgunned. Yet they turned their environment into a weapon. They repurposed their mining equipment to create devastating traps, and their commanders displayed an unnerving ability to predict our movements. What you dismiss as disorganization is, in fact, a fluidity that we do not possess." Another counselor, younger and brimming with confidence, interjected. "You speak of anomalies, isolated incidents. The humans are a fledgling species. Their victories are born of desperation, not superiority." Virlana stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Desperation can birth brilliance. The humans do not adhere to the rigid doctrines we hold dear. They improvise, innovate, and persevere under pressure. Their resilience is unlike anything I've encountered in all my campaigns. If we engage them in open war, we may win the initial battles, but at what cost? Their spirit will not be broken easily, and their retaliation could destabilize the Empire for centuries." The murmurs grew louder, a mix of intrigue and derision. A counselor with a serpentine frame hissed, "Do you suggest we fear them, Commander? Fear a species that has barely ventured beyond its own star system?" "No," Virlana replied sharply. "I suggest we respect them. Underestimating humans is a mistake that will lead to devastation. I have seen their resolve. They fight not just for survival but for their ideals, their people. They will find allies in our enemies, exploit weaknesses we do not even know we have. Dismiss them at your peril." The chamber fell into silence, the counselors exchanging uneasy glances. Finally, the presiding lord, a towering figure of crystalline form, spoke. "You have made your point, Commander. But the Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. Our fleets will proceed as planned. Humanity will learn the futility of opposing us." Virlana felt a wave of frustration but masked it with a respectful bow. "As you command," she said, though her mind churned with defiance. She could see the writing on the wall. This arrogance would lead to bloodshed on an unimaginable scale. As the meeting adjourned, Virlana lingered in the chamber, staring at the tactical display of humanity's territories. A junior officer approached her cautiously. "Commander, do you truly believe they are that formidable?" She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "I believe they are formidable enough to ensure that neither side will emerge from a war unscathed. And that is what the Council refuses to see." The officer hesitated. "Then what will you do?" Virlana's gaze hardened. "What I must." Virlana sat in the dim light of her personal quarters, her talons tapping a quiet rhythm on the metal desk. Her decision was made, but the weight of it bore down on her like the crushing gravity of a supergiant. In front of her, a small terminal displayed the beginnings of an encoded message, the symbols flickering faintly in the gloom. She leaned forward and began typing, her voice steady as she dictated the message to the machine. "To the leadership of the United Terran Alliance, I speak as one who has seen your resilience and ingenuity firsthand. The Galactic Empire underestimates you, and this arrogance will lead us to ruin. I offer this message in good faith. A war is coming, but it is not too late to prevent it. I wish to meet neutral ground of your choosing." She paused, considering her words carefully. A single misstep could doom her effort before it began. My name is Commander Virlana, and I do not seek conflict. I seek understanding. Should you choose to ignore this message, I will respect your decision. But know this, humanity's survival is not in question. It is the galaxy's stability that hangs in the balance. With a sharp motion, she pressed the send command, watching the encryption protocols scramble the data before transmitting it across untraceable channels. The terminal chirped softly, confirming the message's departure. Days later, a response arrived. The message was curt, its tone cold. Commander Virlana, your intentions are unclear, and your allegiance questionable. However, we are willing to hear your words. Meet at the coordinates attached. One ship only. Any sign of treachery will be met with swift retaliation. Virlana allowed herself a small, humorless smile. Cautious and direct. As expected. The rendezvous point was a derelict station orbiting a long-dead star. The station's skeletal remains hung in the void like the carcass of some forgotten leviathan. As her ship approached, the silence of space felt heavier than usual. Her crew, loyal but wary, did not question her orders, though their unease was palpable. When the Terran vessel arrived, it was as unassuming as she had anticipated, small, functional, and clearly built for practicality rather than intimidation. A single shuttle detached and made its way toward the station. Virlana followed suit, her own shuttle gliding silently through the docking bay's ancient mechanisms. She disembarked to find a single human waiting for her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a bearing that spoke of military discipline. His eyes, however, betrayed a cautious curiosity. Commander Virlana, he greeted, his voice steady. I am Captain Marcus Kane. You requested this meeting. Speak. Virlana inclined her head slightly. Captain Kane. Thank you for coming. I understand the risks you've taken to be here. Kane's expression remained neutral. Let's dispense with pleasantries. Why are we here? Because war is inevitable if the Empire's course remains unchecked, Virlana replied. And because humanity is not what the Empire believes it to be. Kane crossed his arms, his gaze scrutinizing. And what does the Empire believe? Virlana's mandibles tightened briefly before she answered. That you are primitive, reckless, ill-equipped for sustained conflict. They see you as an inconvenience, not a threat. Flattering, Kane remarked dryly. And what do you believe? She stepped closer, her posture firm but non-threatening. I believe that your species has a potential the Empire cannot comprehend. I've seen your ability to adapt, to innovate under pressure. If war comes, you will fight with everything you have, and you will force the Empire to bleed for every inch. But the cost will be catastrophic for both sides. Kane's eyes narrowed. You speak as though you care about humanity's survival. I care about avoiding needless annihilation, Virlana countered. The Empire's leaders are blind to the lessons of history. They have grown complacent, arrogant. They underestimate you now, but if you force their hand, they will stop at nothing to crush you. And in doing so, they will destabilize the galaxy itself. Kane studied her for a long moment. You paint yourself as a voice of reason. But why should we trust you? What's in this for you? Virlana's voice grew quieter, but no less resolute. Because I have seen the horrors of war. Because I know what the Empire is capable of when it feels threatened. And because I believe that humanity's survival is tied to the Empire's future. If we destroy you, we destroy ourselves. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally Kane spoke. Let's say I believe you. What exactly are you proposing? An alliance, Virlana said without hesitation. Not of friendship, but of necessity. If we can present the Empire's leadership with a united front, they will have no choice but to reconsider their aggression. Kane let out a soft, humorless laugh. A united front? You're asking humanity to stand alongside the same Empire that seeks to subjugate us. No, Virlana replied firmly. I'm asking you to stand alongside me. If we can demonstrate that peace is not only possible but advantageous, we can force the Council to listen. But I cannot do this alone, Kane stared at her, his expression unreadable. You're asking for a lot, Commander. I am asking for the chance to prevent a war that neither of us can afford to lose, she said simply. The choice is yours. The tension lingered, thick and oppressive, as Kane considered her words. Finally, he extended a hand. For now, you have that chance. But know this, we don't forgive betrayal. Virlana clasped his hand in her clawed grasp. Nor do I. The lights of the Imperial Command Center dimmed as Virlana's image appeared on the main holo display. Her once revered presence now projected an aura of defiance, and the counselors seated around the room glared at the transmission with suspicion and anger. The encrypted message she had sent to humanity had not gone unnoticed. Her protégé, Commander Telvar, a rising star in the Empire's hierarchy, stood at the forefront of those seeking her downfall. She's compromised, Telvar declared, slamming his hand onto the table. Her communications with the Terrans are undeniable. This is treason of the highest order. The presiding counselor's crystalline voice rang through the chamber. Do you have proof that her actions jeopardize the Empire, or are you merely riding the coattails of her reputation to elevate your own? Telvar produced a datapad, placing it on the table as a series of intercepted messages scrolled across the room's central display. The holographic words betrayed Virlana's intentions, warnings to humanity, details of Imperial fleet movements, and requests for clandestine meetings. This is all the proof you need, Telvar said coldly. She has sold us out. She seeks to align with the Terrans against us. This betrayal cannot go unpunished. The Council's murmurs grew louder. Some members, still respecting Virlana's years of service, hesitated to condemn her outright, while others fumed at what they saw as an unforgivable affront to the Empire. One of the elder counselors raised a hand, silencing the room. Virlana is no fool. If she has chosen this path, there must be a reason. We must act carefully. Careful? Telvar shot back. She's endangered our operations. Do you believe the Terrans will sit idly by after receiving such information? Do you believe she won't use her position to sow discord among our ranks? The counselor sighed. What do you propose? An immediate warrant for her capture, Telvar said. Every fleet, every outpost. She cannot be allowed to continue this madness. The warrant was issued within the hour, and Virlana's flagship, the Zora's Blade, became the focus of an intense pursuit. Within the confines of her vessel, Virlana prepared for what she knew was inevitable. She had not expected her actions to remain secret for long, but the swiftness of the Council's response left little room for maneuvering. A junior officer approached her on the command deck. Commander, Imperial forces are closing in. They've deployed pursuit vessels across all nearby systems. Of course they have, Virlana muttered. They never were ones for subtlety. Orders? The officer asked, his tone laced with unease. We hold course, Virlana replied. Prepare the ship for evasive maneuvers. And send a message to the Terran Alliance. They need to know what's coming. The officer hesitated. If we do this, we're declaring open rebellion against the Empire. No, Virlana corrected. We are ensuring the survival of reason. The officer nodded and moved to carry out her commands. Virlana's gaze lingered on the star map displayed before her, lines of pursuit vectors crisscrossing the sector. She knew the Empire's tactics too well. They would try to box her in, overwhelm her ship with sheer numbers. But they underestimated her resolve, and her understanding of their methods. When the first wave of Imperial ships emerged from hyperspace, Virlana was ready. The Zora's Blade was outmatched in firepower but not in strategy. She directed her crew with precision, weaving the ship through asteroid fields and warping unpredictably to avoid entrapment. The chase was relentless, and her enemies grew increasingly aggressive. A transmission from the lead Imperial vessel cut through the static. Telvar's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mixture of fury and disappointment. You've gone too far, Virlana, he said. Surrender now, and perhaps the Council will show leniency. Virlana's response was calm and measured. Telvar, you are blinded by ambition. Do you truly believe the path we are on will lead to anything but ruin? It's not your place to question the Empire's decisions, Tovar snapped. You've betrayed everything you stood for. You've betrayed me. I've betrayed no one, Virlana replied. I am protecting what the Empire refuses to see. Humanity is not the enemy we should fear, they are the challenge we should rise to meet. You've lost your mind, Tovar said. And I'll do what must be done. The transmission ended abruptly as Telvar's ships moved into formation, cutting off Virlana's escape route. Her crew exchanged nervous glances, awaiting her next command. Divert all power to forward thrusters, she ordered. We're going through them. The crew hesitated for only a moment before carrying out her command. The Zora's blade surged forward, its shields absorbing the brunt of the enemy's firepower. Virlana's strategy wasn't to fight but to outthink her pursuers. She exploited their rigid formations, creating chaos in their ranks and slipping through the gaps. Eventually, the ship broke free, but the cost was high. Damage reports flooded in, and casualties mounted. Virlana stood silently on the bridge, her expression unreadable as she assessed the situation. Commander, the officer said, his voice grim. The Terrans have responded. They're offering refuge in their nearest sector. Virlana nodded. Set a course. And ensure the crew knows their sacrifices were not in vain. As the ship limped towards safety, Virlana allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The Empire's pursuit had confirmed what she already knew. They were too entrenched in their arrogance to see the consequences of their actions. She could not return, not now. But she had planted the seeds of doubt, and she would ensure they grew. For the sake of both humanity and the galaxy, she could not fail. The Zora's blade emerged from hyperspace, its hull battered and its engines sputtering from the relentless pursuit. The sight before them was both reassuring and ominous, a Terran Alliance fleet, bristling with weapons, waiting in formation at the agreed coordinates. The humans had honored their word, but the sight of their readiness served as a stark reminder that peace was far from assured. Virlana stood at the command console, her gaze steady. The communications officer turned to her. Commander, the Terrans are hailing us. Put it through. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Captain Marcus Kane. His expression was grim, but there was a flicker of respect in his eyes. Commander Virlana, I see you've had an eventful journey. Virlana allowed herself the faintest hint of a smile. Eventful would be an understatement. But I am here, as promised. Kane's tone remained cautious. The Terran fleet is prepared to assist, but we need to understand your plan. The Empire won't let this stand. They won't, Virlana agreed. But that's precisely why we need to act now. If we can neutralize their fleet's leadership, we can force the Council to the negotiation table. Their strength lies in their central command. If we destabilize it, they'll be forced to reconsider their course. Kane frowned. You're proposing a direct assault on their command fleet? No, she said. I'm proposing something far more precise. Their command vessel is heavily fortified, but I know its vulnerabilities. If we can infiltrate it, we can disable their strategic systems and cut off their ability to coordinate. Kane leaned forward, his skepticism evident. You're asking for a lot of trust, Commander. What's to stop you from turning this into a trap? Virlana met his gaze, her voice steady. Because I have everything to lose if I fail. I've already burned every bridge with the Empire. This is not a gamble for me, it's survival. Kane studied her for a long moment before nodding. Very well. We'll support you. But if this goes south, we won't hesitate to defend ourselves. Understood, she replied. Let's not let it come to that. The joint operation was set into motion. The Terran fleet provided a diversion, drawing the Empire's forces away from their command vessel, while a small strike team, composed of both humans and Virlana's loyalists, prepared for the infiltration. The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless, but it was the only option. As they approached the Empire's flagship, the tension on the strike shuttle was palpable. Virlana, clad in a lightweight battle suit, stood at the front, addressing the team. I will not ask for your trust, she said, her voice calm but firm. Trust is earned, not demanded. but I will ask for your resolve. This mission is not just about survival, it is about proving that reason can prevail over arrogance, that unity can overcome division. Today, we stand not as enemies, but as allies in the face of a greater threat. The team remained silent, their expressions a mix of determination and doubt. Kane, standing beside her, nodded. Let's get this done. The infiltration was surgical. Virlana's knowledge of the flagship's layout allowed them to bypass much of the ship's defenses. Still, the mission was far from smooth. They encountered resistance, and the clashes were brutal. Virlana fought alongside the humans, her movements precise and calculated. For the first time, she felt the strange but undeniable camaraderie of fighting not against, but alongside, humanity. They reached the command center, a vast room filled with glowing consoles and holographic displays. Virlana moved quickly, her claws flying over the control panels as she input the override codes. The system resisted her at first, but she had anticipated this. With the final command, the room went dark, and the flagship's systems fell silent. Kane looked at her, his breathing heavy from the fight. Is it done? It's done, she replied. The Empire's fleet is now blind. They'll have no choice but to regroup and reconsider. Their victory was short-lived. The sound of boots echoed through the corridor as reinforcements arrived. Virlana turned to Kane. Get your team out. I'll hold them off. Kane frowned. We're not leaving you behind. You have to, she said firmly. If I'm captured, I can still buy you time to negotiate. If we all fall here, everything we've done will be for nothing. Kane hesitated, but the determination in her eyes left no room for argument. He nodded reluctantly. Don't make me regret this. I won't, she promised. As the humans retreated, Virlana prepared herself for the inevitable confrontation. She stood in the center of the darkened command room, her weapon drawn, as the Imperial forces stormed in. Telvar was among them, his expression a mix of rage and betrayal. Virlana, he said, his voice cold. You've gone too far this time. Have I? She replied, her tone unwavering. Or has the Empire gone too far in its arrogance? Telvar raised his weapon, but he did not fire. You were my mentor. My commander. Why would you throw everything away for them? Because they are not the enemy, she said. The true enemy is our hubris. And if we don't learn that now, we never will. The room fell silent for a moment, the tension thick enough to cut. Finally, Telvar lowered his weapon. You've always been a fool, Virlana. But perhaps the galaxy needs fools like you. She was taken into custody, but her mission had succeeded. The Empire's fleet was forced to stand down, and negotiations began. Virlana's actions became a symbol, not of treason, but of the courage to defy convention in the name of a greater good. And though she would spend the rest of her days as a prisoner of her own people, she knew she had done what was necessary. The galaxy, for the first time in centuries, stood on the brink of understanding rather than annihilation. And for Virlana, that was enough.